Hi, Jeff from Tone. Hey, how's it going today? I'm gonna ask you for a little lenience with this one because normally all of my clips have been really short and kind of straight to the point. But this one's gonna be kind of long. So if you if you have the patience to hang with me on this, I'll tell you in advance. I really appreciate it because everybody's got stuff to do. But I've noticed a lot lately. There's a lot of new YouTube people and reviewers that seem to, have really hung their hat on this big conspiracy surrounding the high end audio industry and basically that, high end gear isn't worth the price asked and it's a ripoff and it's this and it's that. But, let's start here. When was the last time someone came into wherever it is that you work and pretty much told you that you suck and what you do sucks and you're not worth what you're paid? When's the last time that happened? Um, what would you do if somebody did that to you? What would you do if somebody walked into your office and told you you basically had no worth? That's kind of how I feel about this line of conversation. Take it or leave it. This thought and opinion is this is entirely my own opinion, but I've been a high-end audio consumer for about 40 years. About 20 of that before probably a little less than that before I started Tone 22 years ago. But I've always been a high-end audio consumer. I've always spent a really disproportionate amount of my income on high-end audio gear because I really love music. It's never been a gear thing. I don't see having, just so you know my perspective, I don't see having a high-end audio system as a status symbol or anything like that. I think it's something you get into because hopefully it's because you love music and you'd like to hear more music. Because, I mean, let's face it, if you sat down with a group of friends and told them that you just bought a new Porsche GT3 or a $50,000 Rolex Daytona, they'd think you were pretty awesome, or at least they'd think you were a baller, right? Most people, if you told them you bought $100,000 DAC, they'd probably think you're an idiot. So I'm guessing you probably do this because you love it, no matter what level you're into it. Some people share your love for it. Most probably don't. But that's okay. That's beside the point. But in terms of really high-end audio equipment, I think the thing that I'd really like to stress, and the reason I say this is because, again, Tone has given me the privilege to travel the world and visit a lot of the better high-end audio manufacturers. I've been to Wilson Audio, I've been to Nagra, I've been to Avid, I've been to Riga, I've been to Dyne Audio. I've been a lot of places. I've seen their factories. I've met the people that build the gear. I've talked to their engineers, and I've never met anybody at any of these companies that gets up in the morning and thinks, "Oh my God, how am I gonna fleece these idiots to buy my stuff that isn't worth the value?" So I'm going to give you the conclusion right now, in case you don't want to sit and listen to me for 20 minutes. Here's the conclusion, and really it applies not only to high-end audio, but it applies to cars, cameras, watches, you name it. Anything that's a consumer product that requires materials, engineering, execution, marketing. Refinement costs money. That's just the way it is. And there are a lot of great audio products out there that aren't crazy money, especially the last, I'd say, 5 or 6 years. I think a lot of technology has trickled down, especially in the digital audio world, where, what used to cost $20,000 to make a DAC 10 years ago, you could probably get for about $1,500 today. But that doesn't matter. Again, the best products, or the top products, the top of range products, like those big $850,000 Wilsons, which I just had the pleasure of listening to a week ago in Scottsdale right before the Florida Hi-Fi show. Um, these products take not only a tremendous amount of time to engineer, they take a lot of time to prototype and execute. I mean, back when Martin Logan was still making their big CLX, their big full range electrostatic speaker, of which I had a pair and really enjoyed. When I went to the factory, they said they built 30 prototypes and scrapped them before they got to making the speaker. That's a lot of money. And again, when you go to these companies that are making any kind of product like this in any kind of quantity, they've got a big facility. They've got employees. They've got employees that they're paying decent wages, that they're paying health insurance for, that they're paying pensions for. All of that costs money. But again, the level of execution, all of that aside, the level of execution that you see in something like the CH Precision Integrated that we just reviewed last week or two, that's a $50,000 amplifier compared to, say, a $1,500 Cambridge amplifier. Does that CH sound 25 times better, or does it reveal 25 times more music than the Cambridge? No, it doesn't. However, it does reveal a lot more music, and components that reveal that level of music cost that amount of money because it takes that much time to engineer and execute those products. And this is something I feel is never talked about or rarely talked about in our industry. We either get hi-fi reviewers that say, well, are these speakers worth $800,000? I don't know. I can't afford an $800,000 pair of speakers. That's not the point, okay? What all of you that are out on the internet bitching about expensive hi-fi gear really need to understand is that the people that can afford this gear aren't sweating the load to pay the mortgage, okay? They're putting those $850,000 speakers in a $4 million speaker or $4 million system in a purpose-built room, in a big house that's got 6 cool cars in the garage, maybe more. That is a different world. That is not a world I live in. It's probably not a world that most of you live in. Again, that's okay, but it's out there, and that's who the people that make these components make them for. Wilson makes a great pair of $20,000 speakers. And again, you might even think that's crazy money, but there's a lot of other things that cost that kind of money. A decent watch is $20,000. A motorcycle is $20,000. I mean, a really cool Harley or a really cool Ducati might set you back $40,000 by the time you're done. So that's not out of the realm. But again, another thing that I think a lot of people don't understand is that most of the people, at least all the ones that I've ever talked to that own really mega systems, didn't just wake up one day and go, hey, I'm going to buy an $850,000 pair of speakers. They got into it and they worked their way up to it, and they bought and sold and traded and horse traded and got to where they are now. I mean, I have a fairly expensive system. It's been a 45-year journey. I've been buying and selling hi-fi gear for years before I started Tone. I've been buying and selling vintage BMWs to help pay for my hi-fi habit. I mean, you don't know how far you're going to get into it until you get into it. You might buy an $800 hi-fi system and decide, hey, this is all the further I want to get. This is all the further I want to go. This serves my purpose. Look at how many people have a Sonos and are perfectly happy with that. Again, if we take this back to my other passion in life, automobiles, I would love to have a Porsche GT3 RSR. I can't afford one, okay? But does that mean that product sucks because I can't have it? Should Ferrari stop making cars because I can't afford one? I think it's the same thing with what I'm seeing out on the web and what I'm seeing out on YouTube. You're all pissed off because this is stuff you can't have. So what? Who cares? If you love music, get what you can afford. And you know what? You never know. You might decide that after you've listened to this stuff for a long time, you might want more. You might decide, hey, I'm going to drive a $3,000 car. I'm going to eat ramen because I just want a bitchin' stereo, and that's all that matters in the whole world to me. That could happen to you. It happened to me. There were years and years in my life when I drove the worst piece of shit cars so I could have an awesome stereo. I'm crazy. I admit that. I mean, if you've ever seen that, if you're a car person or a stereo person or whatever, if you've ever seen that meme out on Facebook where they show the perfect house, and it's like this tiny little bedroom and a kitchen, and it's this giant garage or this giant audio room. That's me, okay? I live in an 1,100 square foot house. I've got a 950 square foot building out back that's one big room to listen to music in. That's my dream. That's my fantasy. It might not be yours, So to discount this gear as irrelevant just because it's very expensive, I think is not only short-sighted, I think it's insulting to the people that make this. Again, would you appreciate someone coming in your office and telling you that you're not worth what you're paid? I bet you wouldn't. I bet you'd be really offended. Who knows? You might even take a swing at someone. So, but another thing that I think is a really, really big disconnect with hi-fi, another thing that I think is a really big disconnect with high-end audio, especially the very top gear and the most expensive gear. And again, we're not talking about cables. That's another discussion for another day. I'm talking about speakers and electronics. But one of the things that I think that's very unfortunate, just like driving a Ferrari or an Aston Martin or a GT3, you can't do it, okay? You can't just walk into the Porsche dealer and have them flip you the keys to a GT3 unless you've been a customer for a very long time. And so it goes with high-end audio. Even if you've been to hi-fi shows and you've sat in a couple of those big rooms and listened and this and that, you're still not getting it, because as hard as everybody in this industry works to try and get good sound at a hi-fi show, it still sucks because you're dealing with room acoustics, you're dealing with power issues, you're dealing with a less than optimum room, you're dealing with a room that is full of people, not full of people. Every now and then, a manufacturer will get the right room and the right gear and the synergy, and everything falls together, and you might get a magical experience at a hi-fi show. But again, I submit that if you've heard, let's say the Florida show, you went and heard a couple of those big rooms with, multi-million-dollar systems, and, maybe you even came away and went, my system sounds that good. You're not hearing that stuff optimized. Think about it. How long did it take you to get your system set up to where you're happy with? You might have spent weeks, months. You might have spent a whole year of tweaking this and tweaking that and moving this and trying 10 different speaker locations. What you heard at a hi-fi show, no matter how expensive the gear was there, you took a GT3 for a test drive to Starbucks and got a coffee, okay? That's not driving a GT3 on a track as hard as it can be driven. And oh, by the way, if that's something that intrigues you, go to the Porsche Experience Center. It's about $1,300. You can take one out on a track. I guarantee you will come back with a much bigger appreciation for what these things are worth. And again, sound quality versus money versus this versus that versus expensive casework. I know that's always a hot point. Is this stuff worth what it's audio jewelry. The casework is 50% of the price of the product. It isn't. Talk to any of these manufacturers on what they spend for casework. It's not 50% of what the product is. However, again, going back to the person that's buying that really, really expensive system, most of these people, at least most of the people I've met all over the world, usually tend to live in a little more design conscious environment than you or I do. And they like really nice things, and they want their hi-fi to look as interesting or intriguing as it sounds. So you pay a little extra for that. I mean, that's part of the package. I mean, again, if you're a watch person, do you wear do you wear a Shinola, or do you wear a Tudor, or do you wear something really expensive like a Patek or like a Rolex Daytona, or any of those $20,000 to $100,000 watches? All of those things turn you on for different reasons. Again, should those products not exist because you can't afford them? That's the big question for me. There's a lot of stuff out there that I really like. There's people that buy knockoff Eames chairs. I've got a real one, but guess what? Inside the house, I've got a knockoff. I've got a pair of crazy bull terriers that chew everything. I'm not going to put an $8,000 chair in my living room, but I still like the style. The disconnect here is that wherever you are on the journey, it's okay. But before you write these products off and just take the low-hanging fruit and say, oh, it's expensive, it can't be any good, I really think you need to find a way to experience a great hi-fi system in a great room that's properly set up and listen to some of your favorite music. I think you'll come back a changed person. Doesn't mean you're going to go take a second mortgage on your house to buy a big pair of speakers. But I think that part of our industry is really unfairly judged, because the stuff that's out there that's amazing really is breathtaking when it's allowed to be put in the proper environment. Will all of us get to have those things? Maybe not. But the people that I've met at all of these companies are very passionate people. The people at Wilson that make the $850,000 Chronosonic, they make it because it's there. They make it because they want to take it as far as they can take it. They want to make the absolute most amazing product they can. And, it's that way with everybody. It's that way with Nagra. It's that way with DCS. I mean, I have a DCS Vivaldi. It's an amazing piece of equipment. Again, I didn't walk out the door buying that. I've been trading DACs up for 20 years to get to this point. I just spent time in Scottsdale with the new Varese. I mean, it's amazing. It's $280,000. I can't have one. Am I going to write some snarky review about that product because I can't have it? No. If you're one of the fortunate people that can afford a $280,000 DAC, hey, good for you. It's awesome. And it's a lot better than my Vivaldi is. It's just the way the world is. So, again, in closing, if you've hung around this long, thanks for letting me get this off my chest, because it really bothers me. I've never, at least in my travels, I haven't met anybody that builds gear like this that isn't worth the money asked for it, quite honestly. I mean, when you Jerry Seinfeld always makes a comment about density of thought when he talks about Porsche automobiles, and all of the world's best hi-fi that I've experienced really has a similar density of thought. And that takes time. Time's money. And is it always a linear progression from top to bottom? No, it isn't. But you can't get that sound without spending that amount of money. You can get great sound, you can get enjoyable, you can get immersive sound at almost any level. And again, some of this will depend on your room, some of it will depend on your music. That doesn't matter. But if you're one of those people out there that's crabby about this stuff, and you're saying, oh, I can get, I mean, I saw this on a I think it was on a YouTube comment section where some guy was commenting on the huge Magico M9s. Oh, I could build those for $5,000. No, you can't. You can't build a $900,000 pair of Magicos for $5,000. No, you can't. But again, all of that is okay. But I really, really, one of the reasons that I always suggest, again, whether it's cars, whether it's cameras, whether it's hi-fi, whatever, if there's a way that you can find and even briefly experience the absolute highest performance things that the world has to offer, that will help you make a decision how much you want to commit your resources to getting as much of that as makes sense for you and your world. But I, for one, don't want to see these people stop building at the level that they build and stop producing at the level they do, because it's just awesome that it's out there. When I see somebody drive down the street in a GT3, which isn't often here just outside of Portland, Oregon, but is pretty often when I go to Los Angeles, I just think it's cool. If you've got those things, good for you. And again, a lot of times I'll see on a forum where someone will comment, oh, that person has more money than brains. Trust me, they don't. You don't get the money to buy stuff like that if you're an idiot. So I'm sure a lot of people on the internet are going to be really crabby about me saying this and saying I'm elitist and I'm this and I'm that. You know what? I can't help you. But I really think this needed to be said, and I haven't seen it said anywhere else yet. But I've spent enough time listening to some of the world's finest hi-fi. I just got done reviewing a $200 DAC from China. It's really good. It's a great place for you to get in the game. All of us got in the game somewhere, and all of us got in the game usually at a pretty low level because we were pretty young or we weren't sure we wanted to spend the money. So wherever you're at in this, it's fine. But please, 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 it's just really, really insulting to say that the world's finest products aren't what they are because they're not in your realm. And who knows? You might win the lottery. You might get a big raise. You might inherit a big pile of cash. You might be down at that Wilson dealer knocking on the door, ready to buy those big speakers. You'd be surprised. Stranger things have happened. So, hey, thanks for listening to me. I really appreciate it. We'll be back to short videos next week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.